After studying this module, you shall be able to know the need for understanding consumer buying behavior, understand the consumer decision making process, analyze the factors that influence consumer buying behavior. Introduction to consumer buying. In today's competitive scenario, the key to success lies in making customers happy and satisfied. Without customers, a business stands nowhere. Customers justify the existence of the business. It is only when the marketer understands what customer want that the organization is able to get itself placed in the market. Consumer buying is a complex phenomenon, for it relates to customers' behavior. The dynamic and unpredictable nature of consumer behavior urges the marketers to study and analyze how customers behave in the marketplace and the reasons governing such behavior. Consumer buying takes place when a customer decides to purchase a product. Positive customer behavior in the form of purchases helps an organization earn profits. This kind of behavior is essential for a firm to sustain in the market. However, customer behavior may not always be positive. This implies that a product may not get accepted in the market, or it may suffer from declining sales, or a firm may need to pull back a product from the market. It is therefore imperative for the firms to understand the peculiarities of consumer buying, such as why consumers purchase some products and not others, what steps a customer follows to arrive at a purchase decision, and what factors influence consumer buying. Understanding of consumer behavior is thus essential for the marketers, as this knowledge helps them in framing appropriate marketing policies. The essence of marketing concept is the customer, wherein the various marketing mix elements are defined from customers' point of view. Inefficiencies may creep in while designing marketing mix strategies without adequately analyzing consumer buying behavior. Consumer buying behavior gives the marketers useful insights into W's of consumer buying, that is, what, where, and when, how, and why consumers buy. Also, marketers can assess the possible customer reactions in response to organizational moves and thereby make strategic plans accordingly. Consumer decision making process. It is very important for the marketer to understand what goes on in a consumer's mind in order to decide for the purchase of a product. The decision making process involves comparing the alternatives and selecting the best perceived alternative on the basis of selection criteria. It is also involves collection of information before making the decision, and it is also concerned with the response after the consumption of the product. The decision may be forced or free. In forced decision making, consumer does not have any choice in case of product which are dictated by monopolistic or planned forces in the market, while in free decision making, consumers are free to decide due to the presence of competitive forces in the market. This reflects that consumer decision making needs comprehensive analysis. Understanding of the consumer decision making process is thus essential for the designing of appropriate marketing strategies. Following are the steps that a consumer goes through before deciding to purchase a product: need recognition, information search, alternative evaluation, purchase decision, post-purchase evaluation. These are the steps in consumer decision making process. Need recognition. A product or service is successful in the market only when it fulfills some need, want or desire of the customer. A consumer looks for a product or service when he feels the need. There exists a gap between the present state and desired state of the customer. Along with the identification of the problem or the gap by the customer, the size of the gap perceived and importance that customer accords to the problem affects whether the customer will proceed in the process of solving the problem. It is only when this gap is forceful enough that it drives the customers towards finding a way to fill that gap. This perceived gap is an opportunity that should be harnessed by the marketers by offering a solution to customers in the form of efficient goods and services. In case the need is not felt by the customers, then marketers, through effective communication and promotional techniques, make the consumers perceive it. Along with the identification of the problem or the gap by the consumer, the size of the gap perceived and the importance that the customer accords to the problem affects whether the customer will proceed in the process of solving the problem. Information search. After a consumer feels the need, in the next step, the consumer looks for the information to fulfill that need. The search for information may be internal or external. The experiences and incidents in an individual's life lead to the collection of information in the memory. Assessing one's memory to get information is known as internal search. However, internal search may produce limited information and a consumer may require more information to arrive at better decisions. In such a case, the consumer searches for the information through external sources such as internet, television, friends, relatives, etc. The external search may be ongoing in nature in case customers are interested in collecting information related to some products, or it may be incident specific, which involves the search of information in response to a specific need or problem. Furthermore, the amount of information to be searched depends upon the type of purchase: occasional or frequent, expensive or non-expensive, etc. At the onset, the consumer searches for the parameters that he would like to be present in the product. Then the consumer searches for the brands available in the market and evaluates those products as against the searched parameters. Alternative evaluation. In this stage, the consumer compares the alternative brands against each other, taking the evaluative parameters into consideration. The relative cost and benefits associated with each of the brands are just. The evaluative criteria may be precise or extensive depending upon the product to be purchased. If the product is a high involvement product, then the customer will evaluate the brands against stringent standards, whereas if the product is low involvement product, then the customer may be liberal with the assessment. Also, the weightage attached to each of the parameters may differ across consumers. Evaluation in some cases is based on the features of the product, and this is known as attribute based choice. For example, comparing the refrigerator brands on functional parameters such as cooling, power consumption, while in some cases the assessment may be based on emotions. Purchase decision. After the consumer identifies the need to be satisfied, constructs evaluation criteria and assess different alternatives in relation to each other, he is now confronted with the task of selecting the best alternative. The decision to purchase a product or a brand is guided by exclusion of unpreferred alternatives from the brand set developed by the consumer. The consumer gets mentally engaged to make a choice by rejecting the brands which the consumer perceives to be unfit. Rejection may be based on comparing how the brands perform on the decided parameters, or it may be based purely on the judgment of the consumer without any information processing. Depending upon customers' requirements, the product that fulfills customers' needs to the best is selected. Once a final decision to purchase a product is arrived at, next is the actual purchase by the consumer. A decision to purchase does not necessarily imply purchase. This may happen due to a number of situational factors. For example, salesman influence at the point of purchase may make the customer modify his purchase decision and switch from the selected brand to another brand. Some of the common situational factors include influence of the other customers, stock outs, promotion and communication inside the store, change in customer's shopping plan or some other contingency. Post-purchase behavior. The purchase of a product does not determine its fate, as it is not the purchase, rather the post-purchase evaluation by the customer that ensures the success of a product in the marketplace. After the purchase, the consumer uses the product, and this experience of customer with the product is critical. If the product exceeds the expectations of the customer, then the customer feels satisfied and spreads positive word of mouth communication. The contentment with the usage of the product led the customer to indulge in repeat buying and also recommend the product to his friends, relatives, etc. On the other hand, if the product falls short of customer expectations, then the customer spreads negative word of mouth communication and switches to alternative brands. Factors influencing consumer buying behavior. An analysis of why consumers purchase or do not purchase particular products depends on the factors that influence consumer buying behavior. These factors define the impetus and the pursuit for consumers' purchase. Cultural factors. Culture. Every society is embraced by a culture. Culture refers to the customs and traditions that are passed on from one generation to other. Culture sets the norms and defines the way of living for the people. Cultural forces highly influence customer behavior, as these are deep rooted and affect the beliefs and preferences of members in the society. The closely held beliefs affect purchase decisions. Knowledge of culture helps marketers in comprehending the expectations and notions of people. The marketing mix elements must be designed in accordance with what is being valued and accepted in a culture. Subculture. Culture is a wide phenomenon, and often it is divided into narrow customer groups which have similar held opinions and lifestyles. Subculture is made on the basis of age, gender, ethnicity, nationality, etc. These small groups depict analogous purchasing behavior. India, a country with diverse religions, castes and social class, has a number of subcultures of holding their own values and beliefs. Subcultures assist marketers in segmenting the larger market into smaller subgroups and thereby positioning the offerings specifically to suit the needs and preferences of a particular subgroup. The products and marketing strategies designed in harmony with the lifestyle patterns of the subgroup are effective in winning customers. Social class. A social class is a stratification based on factors such as occupation, income, education in the society. These are homogeneous customer groups in terms of their buying patterns. The heterogeneous social classes differ with respect to their lifestyles, interests and purchase behavior. The social class groupings are based on the ranking and position of people in the society. The socio-economic classification in India is reflective of the classes into which the Indian society is divided into. People pertaining to a social class have identical tastes and tend to buy similar kind of products and services, but differ in terms of their interests and buying habits from other social classes. Social factors. An individual is born and brought up in a society. The society shapes and influences the behavior of people, which in turn affects the decision making of products and services by the consumers. The following factors pertaining to the societies are essential for the marketer to understand and analyze. Number 1, groups. Different types of groups exist in the society. An individual's purchase decisions may be explicitly or implicitly affected by these groups. Customers can be divided into following groups: primary versus secondary groups. The group with which the consumer has recurrent interaction is known as a primary group, such as a work group or a student group. Secondary groups are the ones whose members interact on a constrained basis. Membership versus aspirational groups. The groups to which customers belong to are called membership groups, such as hobby group, neighborhood, etc. And the groups to whom the customers aspire to belong to are called aspirational groups. While people belonging to membership groups depict similar desires, lifestyles, buying habits, etc., people in an aspirational member imitate the buying styles of whom they seek to. Positive versus negative groups. Positive groups are those which are liked by the people, whereas negative groups are those which are looked down by people. The aforesaid groups are referred to by customers while making a purchase decision. A customer is likely to follow the purchase patterns of particular groups in order to endorse that group. A consumer may also get influenced by a group, the motivation being reflected in the purchase behavior. Reference to a group may be in view of the competency held by that group. This proficiency being valued by the customer in decision making. Opinion leadership. Consumers need to base their decisions on accurate and effective information. Such useful information is solicited from opinion leaders who affect the purchase behavior of customers. Through their opinions, opinion leaders collect process and analyze information which is utilized by other consumers in making their buying decisions. Then comes family. People in a family tend to influence each other's purchase decisions. Members in a family play different roles in the decision making process. One member may collect the information while the other may finalize the decision. Also, the decisions taken in a family may be dominated by either the husband or the wife, or may be joint decisions. Keeping in mind the family structures and the family dynamics, the marketer designs the appropriate communication and promotional messages. Personal factors. An individual age, personality, lifestyle affect how he makes purchase decisions and what products he prefers and consumes. The individual differences tend to make people buy different goods and services. Age. Consumers can be divided into different age groups such as kids, teenagers, youngsters, adults, middle-aged and the old people. Age is one of the common basis of segmenting consumer markets. Different age groups exhibit different buying patterns. For example, furniture items are more likely to be purchased by those consumers who are in the family stage. Understanding the specific needs of kids, market offers products such as educational toys, branded kids clothes, software meant for kids learning, confectionaries and snacks, etc. Investment products and insurance policies are more favored by middle and old aged people. Lifestyle. The way of living of people in the society is a reflection of their interests, attitudes and opinions. Some people may prefer to live lavishly, and this gets manifested in the products they purchase, such as branded clothes, luxury cars, frequent dining, etc. People who are very much concerned about their status and prestige will tend to buy products that symbolize eminence and distinction. On the other hand, people who prefer a simple living will buy only necessities and will refrain themselves from buying any luxurious or expensive products. The VALS, that is value and lifestyle segments approach, categorizes consumers into segments such as actualizers, fulfilled, achievers, experiencers, believers, strivers, makers and strugglers on the basis of different lifestyles and the value attached therewith. Personality and self-concept. Personality is a combination of the psychological traits that determine an individual's behavior. Consumers have different types of personalities such as passionate, assertive, carefree, etc. Studying consumer behavior helps marketers understand different personality types so as to develop effective products that match the individual characteristics. Products in the modern marketing era have an associated personality, and consumers endorse those products in which they see a reflection of their own personality. Self-concept is one's attitude towards oneself. Marketers, through competent communications, position products in the marketplace in a manner that goes in harmony with the self-image consumers carry. Through effective illustrations and taglines, customers are reassured that product corresponds to their self-image. Psychological factors. Psychology is the study of the working of human mind in terms of the mental processes that affect behavior. psychological factors assist marketeers in understanding the cognitive principles that govern consumer behavior. Motivation. Motivation is the driving force behind one's behavior. People buy something only when they are motivated to do so. Motivation compels the consumers to initiate an action after the identification of a need that needs to be satisfied. Maslow's need hierarchy theory gives different levels of needs which individuals face in a hierarchy and thereby get motivated to fulfill those needs. At the lowest level are the psychological needs, and such as need for food, clothing and shelter. The second level of needs is the safety and security needs that are concerned with securing the future and living without fear. The third level is the social needs that define the needs for love and affection. Next is the level of ego needs, where an individual wants to satisfy his needs for status and recognition. The final level is the self-actualization needs, which is reflected in the realization of one's fullest potentials. These needs motivate consumers and direct their buying behavior. Then comes perception. An individual response to the people and objects in the environment depends upon his perception. For a market, for a product to succeed in the market, it must be positively perceived by customers. Consumers perceive differently and thereby purchase different products and services. The perceptual differences arise as consumers are eclectic while paying attention to the communication messages, for example, selective attention. They perceive the information received in their own line of thoughts, that is selective distortion. They remember only useful information, that is selective retention. Learning. An individual gets exposed to a number of events and experiences during his lifetime. This leads to learning. Consumers get to know about the products available in the market through learning. The consumption of the product adds to the learning and affects the post-purchase behavior in terms of word-of-mouth communication and repeat purchase. Marketers design promotional strategies to induce positive learning among customers. Attitude. Consumers form judgments about people as well as objects. A product may not be purchased by the customer due to unfavorable attitude attached with that product. The successful brands are the ones which are looked upon favorably by the consumers. A positive attitude towards the product helps in attracting as well retaining the customer. Marketers make efforts to build a positive image of their product so that it is approved by the customers. Summary. The modern marketing era compels the organizations to meet the needs of the consumers effectively. For attaining sustainable competitive advantage, marketers need to understand the dynamics of consumer buying behavior. Gaining insights into consumer behavior can prove beneficial for the firms. Organizational resources need to be exploited in the most optimum way to satisfy customers. The changing needs and preferences of customers must be studied and analyzed in order to develop products that conform to customers' requirements.